Well, we got the 52 Ford back inside on the hoist. It's been a while since we worked on this one. We were hoping to have it done for Automotion. Turned out that we weren't done with it, so we fixed the 68 Olds that Roger owns and took that up instead. New plan is for next year to have this done and his hydraulic car done so we can pull it up behind this. He's got a low rider with hydraulics on it too. So I just had to go pick up my buddy's 68 Olds. He pulled it out for the first time. We're planning on taking this up to Wisconsin Dells with us. It's an air ride, 1968-98, and there's a little bit of brake fluid there. Right by that front or lower control arm, the brake lines leaked all the brake fluid out over winter. So we're gonna get her unloaded and see if we can't put some new brake lines in it. We also ordered a distributor for it because it's still running points, and we're gonna put HEI on it. So I figure I better record this. He's talking about trying to do a line lock brake save because he only has front brakes. So see if he actually does it. That's my job. What a silly guy. Oh, dude, it broke the concrete. Got so hot it started to pit out the concrete. Well, we debugged the woods for the neighbors. So the goal for I'd say the weekend, but really we only have one day to work on it, probably in the next month, because I'm going on Hot Rod Power Tour, and we're 14 days away from when I leave. And we have a lot of work to do. So today the goal is to just hear it run. There's no exhaust on it. It's gonna be open header, but we're gonna get the plug wires put on and enough of the electrical system together so that way we can actually hear it fire. We still don't have the gas tanks done, things like that, but we'll hook a bottle of gas to the carburetor and fill it up and hear it fire off, I hope today. Got the thermostat mounted. We have the spark plugs gapped, wires are installed. I'm not really liking the plug wires that they got. This one, they all fit under the header, but they're really close and tight. And then this one is too short to actually reach where it needs to go, so it's hanging out on top of the intake, and I kind of don't like that. We're also missing some of the brackets or the mounting boss off the intake for some of these pieces. I'm not sure that that's going to matter too much because we're not actually hooking the AC compressor back up. It's just going to be a pulley sitting there, so we'll see if that causes any kind of problem not having it secured. Might have to make new brackets and figure out how to mount it to this bolt back here or something. Yeah, we're going to get the rest of the electrical system going here. I have to replace the oil sending unit with the new one for the digital gauge because I still have the old one from the fuel injected motor down here. We're going to pull that out and then figure out how we're going to get power steering connected to the gearbox. So hopefully this thing will start real soon. Oh, and transmission cooler lines. Those also have to be fabricated and made from, I assume I'm going to make them out of steel line. I might use rubber hose. We'll see. But yeah, coming along. Well, with a few modifications, I was able to put that 90-degree bend on that power steering line. And I had to put a little bit of a bend to go up over the frame rail here. But power steering hose should be on. That's our sending unit for the aftermarket gauges. We're getting really close here. Okay, so now we're going to finish off the brakes. What we're doing here is we're installing a line lock. What this allows is you to hold a button and lock the front brakes on in order to do burnouts with the rear tires and not have the brakes be locked on at the same time. So what we're going to do is we're going to run the front circuit out of the proportioning valve up into the line lock, and then each one of these is going to run to the wheels, which will allow us to, like I said, lock the front brakes on with just holding a simple button. So Okay, after hooking up a battery and rigging up power to the fuse box, power to the starter, ground to the frame, spliced in and removed the this harness from the motorhome had a relay that had to do with the auxiliary battery and something with the starting system. So there was an extra solenoid that was mounted up by the alternator on the original wiring harness. So I had to take all of that out and rewire that. I believe with the neutral safety switch here bypassed in my wiring mess. Let's see if I can set this here. I think, which this was the neutral safety switch and I tied and pinched it off, but it should crank. No, it doesn't. Did not hit contact here. There it goes. Okay, I'm not getting good contact here where I twisted these wires together with tape on them. We will be putting a neutral safety switch in the shifter. Yeah, that's my problem, because if I pinch it, awesome. So, obviously I still have a lot of wiring mess to figure out, and we're actually going to take this ignition system out and put the one that's on the steering column in. So I have the harness somewhere in a box, I'm assuming, in order to fix that. But it'll have the P chassis fuse box, so it's got blade style modern fuses, tilt column out of a, I think that came off of a Firebird if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's coming together. The next step from here is going to be get a distributor hold down to lock that distributor and throw some fuel in it, and I think this thing will fire up. This is going to be the first official drop of gasoline going into this engine. And just going to pour a little bit in, kind of see where the timing is. Probably not even enough to make it pop, but we'll find out. Well, I guess that answers the question, will it run? That popped right off. Exciting. So I'm gonna finish up a couple other things, like putting some radiator hoses on it, or clamps, and put some coolant in it, but this bitch is gonna run today. So the next step I'm gonna do is put the shifter in it and get the shifter cable connected. It's really nice, these universal kits that come with all the different brackets to hook it up to the correct transmission. Obviously a quick scan of the instructions to tell you which brackets you need. This is the one I'm gonna use, and this one for the Turbo 400. And the rest of those are basically worthless, but we're gonna go ahead and get this thing installed. Well, first problem I've had, I ended up with a coolant leak, and I thought it was the thermostat gasket, and I couldn't figure out why it would be leaking. Turns out this isn't a blind hole, and it goes into coolant, so it was coming up around the threads because I didn't thread seal the bolt. So I pulled it all off. I'm going to re-clean the gasket surface here, and then I'll put thread sealant on it. Shouldn't have a problem with that anymore. All right, so I thought I'd give you a quick overview of what I've gotten done. We got the distributor dropped in, and close enough time that it popped off that one time. I now have the fuel system done back to the rear. We don't have tanks in it yet. Thermostat housing, I got that fixed. There was water coming out of the threads there. Lower hose is cut to fit. Transmission cooler lines are fabricated and installed. We've installed the line lock solenoid and finished running all of the brake lines. Got the brakes somewhat bled out. I'm pretty sure due to the fact that we have such large bores on the calipers that this small master cylinder is not going to be sufficient. This is the one that came out of a S10 Jimmy. That's where the booster and stuff came from. So I'm pretty sure we're going to have to upgrade that to make sure it fits, or make sure it stops.
Yeah. The electrical is still a big mess, but it's sorted out enough that it'll start with the key. We got battery trays mounted for both sides on the rear, and he added in these cross members where he's going to mount the air cylinder, or the air compressors, and the air tank. And then the kegs, the beer kegs, are going to be gas tanks on the outside of the box here. So for right now, we have the gas can. Yeah, it should start and run. I think what I'm going to do, because there's no exhaust on it at all, is get it to the point where I push it outside, and then we're going to fire it up and actually hear it run for a little bit. But pretty exciting to be able to drive it back in instead of having to push it. And we got a list of some more parts we need, and pretty soon this thing's going to be on the road. All right, so I've got it pushed outside here. We've hooked up the fuel pump. We're going to see if it actually runs. Got the fuel pump connected. Throw a little fuel in the carb. See what it does here. That's impressive. Thing sounds great. And double check the oil level, and I'll get some transmission fluid out here, but this thing sounds ridiculous. I can't wait to hear it with its stacks on it. And then we got cutouts that we're going to probably cut a hole in the fender right here, and then we're going to have a electric flip switch where it'll go from quiet coming out the stacks to loud coming out the fenders. Yeah, I can't believe how well that thing just started right up. So perfect. Let's get some fluids checked. So I got the transmission fluid topped off. We're gonna let it run a little longer. The oil's good. Everything seems fine. I'm gonna let it run for a few minutes. Boy, it snaps to life, just like that. problem. Got a little drip of tranny fluid coming out of one of my fittings. So I'm gonna shut it off and get that fixed here. But yeah, sounds great. All right, I'm officially gonna put it into gear. Hopefully have brakes, steering, and I'm gonna park it in the back of the parking lot here. So should be technically its first drive under its own power without being pushed. I got my fingers crossed for this one. See what happens. Well, it's somewhat of a fail. I don't have enough power to get over the block without a throttle cable. Let's see what I can do about that quick. So I came up with a pretty sketchy throttle cable. I'm going to take this piece of wire, tie it to my linkage, push it through the firewall, and use this as my throttle for the moment. Gas pedal still needs to be done, along with a whole host of other items that are needed to make this thing actually drive. But as far as me getting over that 2x4 block behind me, I think this will achieve my goal. So we're gonna definitely call this super sketchy. And about as cobbled up as you can get. But as long as it doesn't stick, I got a throttle. Well, that's definitely super sketchy. But it should work. So, my tranny line didn't work because that's still leaking too. You can see here. Try that one more time. Second thing I found broken on it is the tranny line, which I think I'm going to have to get a new fitting. It's tight and it's still leaking, so either I got a bad flare on my line or I got a bad fitting, but I would say it's a bad flare. So let's try out the super sketchy throttle cable here. We'll see if the transmission actually shifts. Oh, what did I do with my little screwdriver? I found it. It's in here. So we got our ignition where? Oh, here we go. Alright. fantastic. We no longer have to push that thing in and out. We can actually just get in it and drive it with the keys. So 52 Ford officially runs. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.